Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Live from the Blue Seats. I'm producer JL coming at you today with the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Blogfather himself. Dave is here with us. Rob is not here with us today. Rob will be back with us soon at some point. Rob is currently on the gold rush, going all the way across the country looking for gold, trying to travel the West and look for the new frontier out in the Rockies. Dave, how are you?
I feel like after that, I died of dysentery.
I had a feeling you were going to say that. Someone's played the Oregon Trail a bit too much, I would assume.
Well, I grew up with it. Yeah, so for our younger listeners, Oregon Trail was like the first game that my generation, I guess JL, you're technically part of it, even though you're on the other end of it, our generation played. It was the first computer game that we were really allowed to play in school. Everybody had it, and everybody had hit that point where about halfway through the game, they died of dysentery.
Yeah. So I remember playing that game and then also kind of reading the Grapes of Wrath, which is kind of like one morbid hit after another.
Yeah, I never read Grapes of Wrath. It was never required reading in school.
It's a good book, but it's very dark. It's very John Steinbeck. It's a very dark book. I'll just tell you that right now. At least I thought it was very dark. I guess I don't remember everybody dies, but a lot of people die. You know, it's about that sort of thing, very similar to that. But anyways, speaking of not dying, we've got hockey to talk about. How funny is that? You get closer to preseason games, it's almost as if maybe there's stuff to actually discuss. And we've definitely got some things to touch on, including the selection of the next Rangers captain. And it's kind of obvious. We kind of predicted this at one point, but we knew it was coming. At least I saw it coming once they traded for him. JT Miller was named the next captain of the New York Rangers. There were all the splashy quotes about how, he's, qualified leader for this team, that he's kind of got the perfect mentality for it, and so the leadership group is, and I actually predicted this. I predicted Trocheck was going to get an A. So JT Miller is your new captain, Vincent Trocheck, Adam Fox, Mika Zibanejad, and Artemi Panarin are your alternate captains and leaders for this team. Now, just to touch quickly on JT Miller becoming the captain, what are your thoughts, Dave? I know you probably posted this on the website, but just for those who haven't seen the article yet, or maybe the ones who have not seen maybe something you mentioned on Patreon, your thoughts on JT Miller becoming the next captain of the New York Rangers?
Well, I mean, we all expected it. So I don't remember when we spoke about the captain stuff. It was definitely over the summer. I want to say July. But I
Yeah, it
think
was a
we all knew Miller was going to be the captain. It was just a matter of when, not if. I was on the same page as Rob. I think it was Rob or you, one of the two of you, where I would have been okay going into the season without a captain, giving Trocheck and Miller the additional A's, and then letting Miller be named captain halfway through the season. But honestly, I trust Sully on this one. This was obviously, he had a big role in naming Miller captain. Miller's a different voice, a different type of voice in the room, very passionate. It can be a double-edged sword, but very passionate. And I think it's something the Rangers truly need. They need an actual voice as the leader and somebody who's not a lame duck captain. I think Trouba was a fine enough captain, but towards the end of his stay in New York, it was clear his heart wasn't in it, and everybody knew it.
right.
I have nothing wrong with the leadership group. The Trocheck getting an A wasn't surprising. I actually messaged in our group chat, I thought Trocheck had an A last year.
He did not.
I could swear he did. Maybe he had it
I,
for a game or two. and that's what's sticking in my mind. But I could swear he had it. So I
Well,
thought the entire A group was the same, and then I
right.
realized that obviously Trocheck was added.
Well,
The
he
A's aren't surprising. They're not going to cut an A out from somebody. They're not going to tell Mika Zibanejad, "No, you're not going to have an A." Like, come on, people. And that was a big gripe that everybody had. It's like, what did you expect? They're not just going to say, "Oh, Mika, you're not going to have an A." They want this to work, so
right.
let it cook and let it see how it goes before you make a rash decision. As Elsa would say, let it go. Last season was last season.
Well, I will say this because this is definitely something that has happened. So maybe there was a chance you thought Trocheck had an A because maybe he wore it during a preseason game, and that tends to happen. That's like when I
Your
initially
drink is in the bathroom. My wife just walked into the office to get her drink, and I
oh
moved it
oh
out
wow.
into the bathroom, figuring she'd pass it so that she didn't have to sneak in here. And she's doing like the reverse walk out now.
Oh my goodness. I was for a second, I'm like, wait a minute, my drink's right next to me. I didn't hallucinate from my bathroom to my room, Dave, but um goodness gracious.
So,
Well, thank
so
you.
yes. Anyway,
Well,
continue. Sorry.
thank you, Dave's wife, for throwing not only him off, but me off as well. No, so I think the effect that you're talking about, maybe Trocheck wore an A for a game on a preseason, if that's probably what stuck out to you, because the same thing happened to me when Marion Gabrick wore an A for a preseason game or two, and I would swear that at one point in the past that he was an alternate, but he really wasn't. Usually veteran players, when a captain's not dressed or another alternate isn't dressed, they would just slap an A on some of the most experienced players for preseason games because they have to, so maybe that's probably why that's the case. But I guess just quickly on the Miller stuff, um, at least on my end, uh, I knew it. Like I said it here. I know I think I even did a whole episode. It might have been one of the solo ones I recorded here in the summer where we were basically there were rumors going around that they were leaning towards either uh Vincent Trocheck or JT Miller. But I knew for a fact that once they traded Truba and then traded for JT Miller, because Drury had been, I guess, salivating for JT Miller for quite some time, and the rumor had been at least been thought of over the last couple of seasons in relation to, the whole Pedersen Miller drama in Vancouver and how the Rangers kind of needed something to shake up the room. So I would assume that you're going to trade for a guy who is going to be here for, unless they end up trading him in the 2 seasons to another team like they've done for every captain. Miller's going to be here for quite some time. And
No,
I
Miller's going to be
do,
here for 2 or 3 years, and then he's
well,
going to get traded.
well,
Sorry,
you made the
I'm going to be
obvious
that
joke when
guy.
I just mentioned it. Yeah, you're not the only one that made that joke to me when when we all found out the news. But uh, outside of the joke, he's going to be here for quite some time, and I think that that's the identity that they're looking for. And honestly, just some of the quotes that were talked about today, just from obviously I'm going to just kind of be broad strokes with this. He talked about the whole no BS logo or the no BS stuff that they put on the back of some of their t-shirts. They want to be fast. They want to stick to the team game, be your fast and F you type of team. And I think that, you know, the rest of the leadership group with Trocheck, Zibanejad, Panarin, and Fox, they're all kind of on board. And I think Miller would be the right steward for that. But transitioning quickly into the training camp. So we're recording this on September 18th. And there were a couple of big reveals today. Obviously, we all know the Centennial jersey was released. We'll get to that in a bit. But also, today was pretty much the first day of team skates in camp, and a lot of stuff came out. Vince Macagliato, does a great job on Twitter, really kind of throwing out information in terms of what's going on. Molly Walker also does a really good job too in terms of just getting information from everybody. Peter Bogg, they do a great job getting these quotes out, getting information out from the camp, which we really do appreciate. And so the thing I want to talk about, just touching on Mike Sullivan here real quick, is that uh Vince Ricogliano said about 5 hours ago that the final session is ending and players were pushed pretty hard today. And uh the reply to that was that Sullivan said, and I quote, "If you didn't observe, conditioning and fitness is going to be a priority in this first part of camp." He added, quote, "I told them all from the meetings I've had with them in the offseason that I was going to push them hard. Today was the first day of that. It's my responsibility to try to help them become the best version of themselves." And then you posted on Blue Sky a response to Sullivan, really kind of, someone was taking note of Sullivan in practice, really getting on these guys for not working hard enough. So I want to just ask, or just kind of bring forth the question of, what are your thoughts on just Sullivan kind of really making his presence known on this first day at camp so far?
Well, it's not unexpected, but it's the kick in the ass this team desperately needed. They had 4 years of players, coaches, where both Gallant and Laviolette were less of a, in your face, let's figure this out, let's get this done, and more of a, okay, I trust you guys. I'm going to let you guys figure it out for yourselves. And they desperately needed something like that. This is why when Tortorella got fired or left or something like that from Philly, yes, Philly, and a lot of people were lining up saying, "Get Torts here." And then obviously Sullivan was let go in Pittsburgh, and then we said the dream team: Sully as the head coach and Torts as the associate or assistant, and that would have been great. But this is the kick in the ass this team needs. They needed a personality like a Torts, and Sully's right up there with them in terms of that personality. And hopefully, this means they're not going to get gassed later in games. And if they happen to make a run, they're not going to get gassed halfway through the playoffs like they seem to do all the time.
Right.
But we'll see. It's nothing but good things when your coach is saying, I'm going to bag skate you for the first month so that you guys actually have legs under you.
Right. No, I agree, and don't worry, guys, this is not going to be a podcast where I just sit here and agree with Dave the whole time. Um, yeah,
I mean, you should. I'm always right.
well, okay, calm down, okay? Come on. Let's be real here, all right? You're a Jets fan like me, so you're prone to errors in judgment. So,
No, 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 no. I can. First off,
wow,
I'm a
where
Jet
did that come
fan,
out from?
yes. But remember, I am a smart Jets fan that knows long before the season starts that we're not in it. So I'm mostly a fan of my fantasy football team at this point.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
Yeah,
unlike
I
me,
know.
I'm a sucker. Um, but no, just I was encouraged just by what I saw so far. Just listening to some of the comments some of the players made, and listening to the way Miller was talking about the whole no BS thing, and then just hearing that Sullivan was really tough on these guys. I like that, and I think that's it's a good sign because we probably touched on this before, but since last season, but Sullivan did say that they did have a conversation about it, and you have to, you can't avoid it. It's there. It's what preceded you, and you have to find a way to pick up the pieces and move on. Now, obviously, you're going to be forward thinking, so you're not going to dwell on it, but you have to talk about it. And if this is the way for them to move past the stench of last season, then I'm all for it. If you're going to come into camp and you're not going to play hard, you're not going to practice hard, you're not going to put in the work, then that's on you. And I think, and this is not an indictment on Mika, but I think that there was some concerns about his conditioning in the past. And I think that with the way that Sullivan has kind of reached out to Mika, touched, base with him, and, Mika talked about, he really appreciated the visit out to Stockholm and how he had him at his house and, they had barbecue together. Um, I think that Mika is buying into what Sully's doing, and I think part of that is conditioning because Mika always seemed a bit a step. It always seemed to be a step off last couple of seasons, and maybe it's that among other things, but it seems like whatever Sullivan is doing, he's getting people to buy in, and I
Well,
like
he
that
is a
a
new
lot.
dad, so I think his kid is what, 2 years old, two and a half.
Yeah, yeah,
As somebody with a feral 2 year old right now, who is, as we speak, screaming, and we're trying the cry it out method for all the parents out there. I'm sure you know that. Um, if you don't sleep, you're going to look slow. So I'm willing to give him a pass. I haven't heard anything
Of
about his
course.
conditioning, and we hadn't heard anything about his conditioning in the past, even with David Quinn. David Quinn was mo- not as intense as Sully or Torts, but still in that mold. And we didn't hear anything about Mika's conditioning there. So I don't think all of a sudden his conditioning became an issue. I think something else was going on, and maybe that's just rose-colored glasses and blind optimism. But the Rangers are paying him $8.5 million for the next 35 years, so they need it to work. And I know that a lot of what happened last season has left a sour taste in many people's mouths.
Right.
But Mika being Mika and being what we expect is what this team needs. So rooting against him is quite possibly one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. And there's a lot of
Right.
people out there rooting against Mika Zibanejad.
Yeah.
Just like,
Why?
well, do you want to be right or do you want the Rangers to win? Like, I'd
Right.
rather be wrong and have the Rangers win than
But
be
that's what he
right and
wants.
have the Rangers lose. Like, get your heads out of your asses. And I mean that in the
Yeah.
nicest way possible. Personal feelings about a player should not impact the way you root for your team. You still
Right.
want this player to be good, even if you don't want him on the team anymore.
Right. Exactly.
Like the
And
way we
I
all
think
felt about Tony D'Angelo.
right.
When
And
he was still a Ranger before Kreider knocked him out.
right. 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 So, you want to see him do well. And also I do like that they're committing to and I guess to touch into the next thing that we can talk about is that they are so it seems as if in terms of Mika Zibanejad that uh they're going to use him on the wing with JT Miller, and it seems like that was somewhat of a compromise to kind of keep Miller and also Zibanejad happy, which honestly, at this point, I'm fine with because if that means that we can get a lot out of Mika, putting Mika on a third on the first line with him on the right wing, then that's great. But now what ends up happening is Sullivan also said that, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, is that with Mika going up to the first wing, right wing, then that means that they're going to put the emphasis on the third line. And I know you wanted to touch on this. So they want to put on the third line whatever it decides to be, whether it's with Uso Parsonen down the middle with, I'm guessing, Othman and Berard or a mix of those players with maybe Taylor Radish. Um, or maybe Noah Laba surprises and becomes the guy. But there was this big emphasis on the third line becoming one of those lines that they can throw out against a team's top offensive group, defensive zone draws, essentially a weapon that Sullivan can use to suppress a lot of incoming offense. And I'm hoping I'm making sure I get that. All right, I said that the right way. So just Dave, I know you wanted to touch on this, but just I guess give us your thoughts on with Mika moving up to the top line right wing. Your thoughts on what Sully wants to do with the third line.
Oh boy. Okay. So it's not what I would have done, but there are two things. One, you have to trust Sully. And I disagree with going with Zibanejad at wing right away, but I also I was not in Sweden with the two of them. I was not in the room when Sully Miller and Zibanejad were talking about this. Obviously, I wasn't in the room. So I'm going off of an outsider's perspective. I believe, given the options the Rangers have at center, Zibanejad at center is their best bet, and they can create that shutdown line with Vincent Trocheck. But it's too early in camp for me to make blanket statements because I don't know what that third line looks like. I don't know what the fourth line role is going to be, and that's critical. When that came out, all of you guys in the group chat expected me to blow a gasket, and I can't right now because we know now the top two lines, the Miller line and the Trocheck line, are going to be offensive lines. We know the third line, whatever it may be, is going to be tasked with defensive zone starts. My question is, what is that last line going to look like, and what is their role going to be? Because initially, Sam Carrick, Adam Edstrom, and insert right wing here, Rempe, Brodzinski, it could have been Radish. That would have been a solid shutdown fourth line. But now, if the third line is your shutdown line, do you have two shutdown lines? What kind of roles do we have? Although I do like the fact that he's saying his forward lines are going to be the shutdown lines, not his defense pairs.
Right.
That I am absolutely thrilled about. So I wanted to end it on that. I may not agree with the forwards yet because I don't have the full picture, but the fact that he's not saying, hey, we're going to have, I'm just picking a defense pair at random here. Robertson Borgen. That was a pair from practice today. We're not going to have Robertson Borgen as our shutdown pair. They're going to get all the defensive zone starts. He has not even said anything about defensive pair roles, which to me signals he's probably going to roll the defense pairs based off zone starts and not off of opposition, which is how it should be. Get Fox in the offensive zone and find a pair that can move the puck up the ice from defensive zone to offensive zone. That I'm good with. So I'm good with that. I wanted to end it on the positive that I like at least the overall strategy.
Well, I just from what I've seen, I think what he's just trying to do is just this is sort of like the feeling out process in terms of looking for who he wants to or who he would feel comfortable with throwing out because he doesn't win two Stanley Cups on just, Crosby and Malkin alone. They had many coaches who had those two and couldn't do anything with that. So he definitely has the mind for it. And I do appreciate the attention to detail and making sure that he can get the best of what he has so far in camp. There are a lot of players in camp. Obviously, some are going to get cut before Sunday's game against the Devils. But I agree with you in that sense that he's not strictly talking about the defense because, and this is something that you had, long, talked about over the years, with Gallant and probably even before that with Quinn, even though I was not here on the blog yet, but and also with Laviolette is that roles are important. And while Laviolette did implement roles for certain things, it kind of seems like he got away from that towards the end, and it just kind of seemed like
I mean, Laviolette didn't expect anything from what last year was.
Right,
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to give Laviolette a pass on last year only because that was something he could not control. That was
right.
well out of his. He wasn't being paid enough to do that, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. No, no, no. I agree 100%. But obviously, there was a change that was needed, of course. But
Yep.
and no indictment on him. But it's just he did deviate from that, and you can't blame him for deviating from the plan that worked the year prior. But it's just nice to see the attention to detail and the pushing of the players and I'm hoping that with Mika coming up on the first line right wing that it'll allow for somebody else because I so it my I'm the thought of that they're going to use the fourth line as sort of a rough and tumble kind of line because it just kind of seems like the energy that would give off. Obviously with Edstrom, Carrick, and then of course I will say this: I am curious to see what Sullivan does with Matt Rempe. I just thinking about it. I think Sully knows what he has in him, so we'll definitely see a bit more of a rotation. Although Rempe, with extended playing time, does do reasonably well, especially with Edstrom and Carrick down the middle. But that's an interesting point about what that third line would look like. But then you have a couple different options just down the middle, whether it's Parsonen, Laba, whether Radish is going to take draws at center, whether one apparently there was an
Dylan Rubrick.
idea Dylan Rubrek is another one. Another one that could possibly be is potentially Adam Edstrom potentially taking draws. That's just an idea that I heard. Uh, but we'll just have to wait and see. It's been the first day of camp. We'll have to see more. I can't wait to see what the first preseason game looks like. Even though preseason hockey tends to make me want to pull my hair out, but it's a very observational sort of time period, and I still can't believe that we're almost at the start of the season. But anyways, speaking of hockey stuff, before we get into the questions, the Centennial jersey was released this morning because the New York Rangers almost like clockwork release stuff at 10 a.m. and that's when, from my knowledge, the Centennial jersey uh, came out, and I will say that I like it. I mean, we kind of all knew what was coming. It's a variation, or maybe, yeah, I want to say would that be considered a variation of the, or I guess kind of like uh a direct sort of copy of the original 1926 uniform with some alterations and additions to it. It's a light blue, the original blue that apparently was what they wore on their first game. They have the old school striping on the arms and on the bottom. And the Rangers script is across the chest, as one would be, very similar to the Winter Classic jersey from 2018. I like this jersey a lot. I really do. They showed Messier modeling it with the C. Obviously, he's going to have the Game 7 patch on, which, just quickly mention, the Rangers have a jersey patch ad. It's Messier's Game 7 brand apparel, whatever. Not a fan. Moving on. Um,
It's not on the
so
jerseys that you buy.
Yeah, let's clarify that. When you buy a jersey, you will not get that patch unless, I guess, you have to explicitly ask for it, because I do know that there's an option to do that. But off the rip, you will not get the patch on, so don't worry about it. And obviously, the Centennial patch will be on the other shoulder. So overall, I think it's a clean look. I think it's the Rangers have never really had a bad look, although some people would say that the jersey from the 70s was a pretty bad look, but I don't think it's as bad as people think it is. Um, but overall, I think it's a clean look. I would love to see what the helmet and the jersey pants and the gloves look like. I would hope, and I will say this, uh, shout out to Hope and also myself. We predicted that that was going to be it. It was kind of the only way they could go, because honestly, if you think about it, if you're doing a Centennial, Detroit released their Centennial the other day, Chicago released their Centennial the other day, and all those designs are very close to similar things that they had in the past. All these teams have really kind of done different types of styles and uniforms. So kind of going back to the original kind of work, the Detroit Centennial looks really nice with kind of the old school captain's patch and the old school number font and letter font and all that. The Chicago Centennial is really simple. If you didn't notice that, it's the Blackhawk head crest, and it has the gold outline around it, but the rest of the jersey, except for the 100th anniversary patch, remains pretty much the same. So I want to see what it looks like. Mind you, I'm a Jersey head. If nobody knows this, I'm a huge Jersey head. I have a ton of Rangers, Mets, Jets jerseys. My closet, I have two closets. One closet in my hallway is just full of jerseys. Um, but I have my regular closet where I do have regular clothes. A lot of people don't think I have regular clothes, but I do have regular clothes. Um, so this is like a big deal for me. And the script obviously is just a basic, you know, one layer white with the name and the number, which the numbers are just normal font, regular, the same numbers that are on their jersey. Uh, but it's a good look. I like it. It's a really good look. It's simple. Rangers can't really do anything else. They would have to, honestly, at this point, if they're going to do another jersey, either go back to the Heritage jersey or find a way to do variations of either the two Winter Classic jerseys or the Stadium Series jerseys. So just quickly before we get into questions, Dave, just your thoughts on the Centennial jersey.
I'm not a jersey head. I haven't purchased a jersey in a long time, mostly because I've been barred from doing so. Um, but and I'm pausing because I'm trying to figure out how to explain to Blue Sky users that ratioing me on the jersey doesn't help because I didn't create the jersey. I got ratioed to high hell, and it wasn't even a custom post that I did. It was an auto post from the blog post. So it was just the title and the picture of the jersey, and every response I got ratio to high hell of people saying these are awful. And I just wanted to let you guys know I'm colorblind. If I were to have designed those jerseys, they would have come out fucking purple. All right.
Goodness gracious, Dave. Oh my
I
God.
did not design these, and these are probably going to turn out a lot like I think it was last year's third
Third jersey.
jersey, where people saw the pictures and they said this is crap, and
They
then they
look
finally
great.
saw the full kit, stealing a soccer term, and all not all, a lot of opinions changed after they
It's a
saw the full kit.
it's a
So let's
good
just see
looking
what it
jersey.
looks like. Do they
Yeah.
say when they're going to wear them? Is this an all
Mm,
year thing or is this only select games?
it's only select games. It's not gonna be every game. Because they were doing content day in regular home jerseys, so this is going to be it's a special jersey for some select games, from what I was able to see. So I don't think that, and plus, if you're going to honor your heritage, you're not going to change the main home jersey that everybody likes. So it's going to be for select games. Obviously, the third jersey is also still in circulation, so that's also still going to be there as well. So the Rangers will have 5 jerseys this year. You have the home away, you have the third jersey, which is the navy blue, you have the Centennial jersey, and then you will also have the Winter Classic jersey. So the Rangers will have 5 jerseys this season. But to those who do not like the Centennial jersey, you can have your opinion. It's a free country, whatever. But I vehemently disagree with the jersey being ugly. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think
I
it's
vehemently
ugly. I just think it's, you know what? Less is more. I I don't mind it. I don't think this is the worst thing I've ever seen. I've seen better jerseys. I like the Winter Classic one, the cream Winter Classic from 2012, the best out of all these alternates. I liked the Stadium Series from what was that, 2014, when they play Yankee Stadium in the sub-zero weather. I like those. This is fine. Less is more. I don't know what some people were expecting. I don't know.
well,
But it's not fucking purple, so that's good.
no, it's not. It's really not. I like it. Um, so, we'll just have to see, how it looks with the full kit. And I'm ready for it. I am. I'm honestly, I really can't wait for the season to kick off because it's definitely going to be a fun one. Just to kind of see what they have in store for the Centennial celebration. Anyways, all right, let's get into questions. Questions, questions, questions. First of all, thank you for submitting questions. Thank you for tagging us. Also, by the way, I just want to shout out Sean Hartnett. Um, he tagged us in a tweet uh, on Monday or Tuesday, if I'm correct. The 16th was Tuesday. He tagged us
Blue Sky or Twitter?
on Twitter. He tagged us on
Oh, that's right. I
Twitter.
didn't
So
see it.
he tagged the podcast account. And he basically sort of kind of agreed that it would be cool that they would wear this style of uniform, except the only difference is that he alluded to them not having any names on the back. I don't think they can do that. I think there's a uniform code for that. So I don't think they can go no name because they forced teams to start putting names on jerseys in like the 70s. So but I do agree with Sean here that the tan pants would work well, and maybe the tan gloves too. So, just Sean, it's great. I like it. I like that they went that route, and I think that I wish they would be able to do the no name, but obviously for reasons they have to have the name. So, thank you, Sean, for tagging us in that. I'm a big Jersey guy, so I like this kind of stuff. Some people didn't agree with it, but that's okay. Anyways, all right, we go into questions. So this first question comes from Twitter, and this comes from Hockey Night on B-Way. And he asks, Blue Seats Live, can you provide a systems breakdown of Mike Sullivan as training camp preseason gets into full swing? I'm gonna leave that to you
Oy,
because you have a better knowledge than me on that.
oy. All right. And going back to what we said last week about the saying ums a lot. This is an actual because I am trying to think back because I haven't watched Sully in a while. I haven't watched Penguins hockey. So I can give a high level. I can't get into specifics yet. So special teams, don't expect much of a change. It'll still be a rotating 1-3-1 umbrella depending on rotation. That's what every team runs. And penalty kills usually a hybrid of everything. So there's no real set penalty kill system. It's a lot based on where your opponents are setting up and you just figure it out. So I would expect, again, high level, a 2-1-2-4 check with it being a little bit more on the aggressive side. So instead of keeping F1 around the blue line, I'd expect F1 to be around the tops of the circles with two men in pressuring the puck. And if it's not that, then an aggressive 1-2-2, one man in pressuring the puck, two guys to the tops of the circles. Things like that. I would still expect on the back check the centers to be the first guys back on the back check covering the high slot in the defensive zone where the Rangers are primarily going to be running a zone. So it'll rotate between puck location and who's on the ice and things like that. The big thing to remember about what Sully is going to expect from his centers is that they are moving their asses and they are back on defense. He relies very heavily on his centers, which is why Evgeny Malkin in particular got that pretty bad rap for being bad defensively. It's because, yeah, Malkin is Malkin, so you don't really worry about him, but he wasn't always back on defense. That was a hole in his game. Whereas
Yep.
Crosby is one of the best players in the game for a reason, and he was always back.
Right.
So just little distinctions here and there. I would expect both Miller and Trocheck to adapt seamlessly. I don't think Yuso Parsonen is it as the third line center, but I'm happy to be wrong there. I am unsure if Carrick has the wheels to get back, but obviously we'll see. That's the best I can do right now, quite honestly.
So would you say it's a more aggressive form of what Laviolette was running from the seasons from last season?
More
Because oh,
aggressive, faster, and simpler.
yeah, because I know what
Laviolette's defensive zone system last year was the same that we saw that AV ran, that hybrid man
that
zone
man
train
zone,
wreck,
right?
where the defensemen are supposed to release. I think AV had the defensemen releasing at the dots,
At the dots, yeah,
and Laviolette had them releasing at the tops of the circles.
at
But
the
how
tops
often
of the
did we see
circles.
Dan Girardi at the blue line or Keandre Miller
Oh, well, yeah.
at the blue line? It's just they
Which
didn't have the
always
personnel.
right, which always kind of like baffled me a little bit, but I knew that that was the system, especially when I had it broken down to me at one point. But like it just kind of just from watching the team last season, you knew that that wasn't it. And obviously that began to rear its ugly head in the playoffs 2 years ago when Laviolette was first the coach here as first season. But that's interesting because I know that when Laviolette was hired, he was seen to be as sort of like this very aggressive down low forechecker. But it seems as if as it kept going on, it got more conservative, which is why there was a stretch where, excuse me, where they weren't scoring any goals. So I hopefully that this is a little bit more aggressive in terms of just trying to, I guess cause more turnovers in the offensive zone and just make sure that they put the pressure on offensively on the puck. So thank you,
Yes.
Mickey Knight on B-Way. We appreciate that. This next question is on Blue Sky. This was on one of our posts. And this is from DSAM at DSAM1921. Can't believe he was born in 1921. Did I make that joke before? Did you make that joke too at one point, Dave? I don't know. But
That's not a joke I would have made.
I don't know. I feel like you did say it. Or maybe I'm having that same effect you had with the A.
No,
So,
I can tell you my sense of humor. I would not have made that kind of a joke because if he was born in 1921, he's 104 years old. There's no way a 104-year-old is using Blue Sky.
don't know. You might be surprised, but anyways, all right. So so DSAM first asks, how many quote unquote no BS profile pictures do you expect to see from the comments
Oh,
with the
Jesus.
most insufferable takes about the team this year? I will say it's probably going to happen sooner than you think. And I know that's a joke question, but uh, I will say
First off, you know what? You answer. That shirt's gonna piss me off all season.
I like the sentiment, but
So do I, but I know what's gonna happen.
you know what's going to happen is it's going to get bastardized, and of course, it's going to turn into this whole thing where you're going to use that as an excuse to get mad at a guy for turning a puck over in the middle of a game in October when it wasn't really his fault, kind of thing. But, anyways, so now for the real question, he asks, "How soon would you like to see the finished lineup, or would you rather see many variations of the lineup for all of training camp and preseason?"
That is an interesting question.
That
Would
is
I?
a really good question. I like
Yeah.
that.
I want to see different iterations only if we're not seeing the results we want to see. So from the teams, the three teams, it looked like Sully had pairs. Oh, wow, my voice is cracked. Pairs of forwards together: Trocheck and Panarin, Miller and Zibanejad. I think there were others, and I'm drawing a blank on the other ones. But it looked like he had pairs of forwards that he had an idea he wanted them to play together, and then he's going to figure out the third. I don't expect blended
No,
lines going into a blender every other game. I would like to see, at the very least, Brennan Othman get a look in the top six. I would like to see Brett Berard get a look in the top six. I would like to see somebody who's not Yuso Parsonen as a third line center to create a third
goodness,
scoring line.
you just hate this guy, man.
It's
Goodness
not. I
gracious.
don't. I have nothing against him. He is. Here's the thing about Yuso Parson, and maybe I need to explain myself on this. It is nothing against him. It's the fans in general saying he's going to be their third line center. He's this young kid. He's going to be great. The guy has 150 NHL games under his belt already. Colorado traded him after 20 games when he didn't fit in, and they needed centers. Nashville gave up on him too. What makes you think that all of a sudden he's going to become this amazing center? I'm okay giving him a long leash and seeing what he can do. I don't think it's going to happen. I think they need a third line center. I am more than happy to be wrong, and Parsonen shocks me, and he becomes a great shutdown center. Otherwise, they either need to trade for a third line center, they need to move Zibanejad back to center, or they need to hope one of Lava or Rubric become ready halfway through the season. I don't think Parsonen is it, and I'm happy to be wrong. I would love to be wrong. I just don't think he's it.
But that's fair. I know I was obviously just busting your chops, of course, but
No, but people are gonna hear this and go, "Oh my God, you hate him."
no,
I
of
don't hate
course.
anybody on the last time I hated a player on the Rangers was Tony DeAngelo, and he's the
Well,
only
no,
player I have ever hated on the Rangers.
that was also, that was also
That's
right.
because he's an asshole.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm
no,
sorry, but he's an
no.
asshole. Anyway,
Um,
I
no,
don't hate players. I want them to do well. I just don't see it.
no, I obviously I'm busting your chops, but I get
I know you are, but unfortunately, the masses
other.
will hear, "Oh my God, what's with your use of person?" Me. Hey, don't touch
Well,
grass.
well, well, I will say this though. I think I think Parson so I have I'm in this firm belief that, sometimes some players bounce around a little bit and then they end up finding their traction in, you know,
And
in
I
a
hope that
place that's
happens. I
very
do.
unexpected. And I hope it does too, because it's like I said all summer. And even when there was some games going on during the end of last season when Parson did play, kid's got a bit of a motor. And I think that hopefully, and I hope I'm right on this, and I hope that you're wrong, that Parsonen can add sort of that motor. He will not add the motor. He has a motor. He cannot add that, that little bit of a bump down the middle in terms of just kind of being an energy line. And I think just going back to something that we were saying before, I think the fourth line could be sort of like an energy line. And the third line will be the defensive line, but also have that quality of being an energy line. Because if Brett Berard is penciled in for your third line, he's already an energy kind of guy. And if it ends up coming to that Brendan Othman is on the third line consistently, I think that if you have all three of those guys kind of very similar to the energy that Zuccarello, Pouliot, and Brassard gave the Rangers back in 2014, I think that that's a positive. And just from looking at the way Parson played and in person and also on TV, I think that there is something there. I'm not saying that Parson is going to score a million goals. Okay, he's probably not going to score even 15. But I think just being sort of that energy guy down the middle, I honestly can't even tell you how good he is as a centerman in terms of faceoffs. But I just think that this could be right place, right time. And look, if I'm wrong, hey, I'm wrong. I'm not a scout.
Yeah.
I'm just the guy doing a podcast that's a fan with another guy who runs a blog and is a fan and does the podcast. But obviously we have opinions that we would hope that, players would end up doing well for the team that they root for because that's what you want. I mean, Jonathan Marchessault bounced around a little bit before becoming, this good player for Tampa Bay, you know. Uh, I'm sure there are other examples that I can't come to my head right now, but there are instances where players have bounced around a little bit and have been able to find their spot. Maybe it's not two or three times, maybe it's one or two times, like Martin St. Louis in Calgary or Derek Brassard in Columbus, but maybe this is his spot. So, um, and just to answer the question quickly on, how the lineup would be. Like you said, I think they're gonna just do a bit of a blend, not a blender, but just kind of really figure things out. I will say probably by the second to last or the last preseason game, it'll be figured out. I feel like Sullivan is not the type of guy that will want to, because AV used to do this all the time, and I hated it. It was where you wouldn't really have an idea on what the team would look like until literally the night before opening night. Now, obviously, there are exceptions to where they have to make a tough decision and they take all the time that they could. But I will give Peter Laviolette credit here in the sense that he already had most of the team set by the time the last preseason game came around. They just had to make the obvious cuts, of course. So anyway, so thank you for that question, D Sam. We appreciate it. So now on to the website, and thank you for those to ask us these questions on the website, on the blog rather. So this one comes from NYC Crash, and yes, your question did make it, by the way, because you he sent it as we were doing it and got it right before we started our question segment, so we will take it. He asks, what realistically do you think this team needs to get a chance at the cup this year, Dave?
Oh boy. Oh boy. That's a loaded question. All right. So let's assume best case scenario for the defense that Gavrikov Fox is an elite top pair, that Schneider Borgen works, and that Susi and Morrow for some reason works too. Let's just assume that at the very least you have an elite top pair and a bottom four that can hold their own. We'll assume that. That's a blanket assumption. They need a legitimate third line center because, again, I don't think Parsonen is it. Happy to be wrong. And honestly, as long as they get that, assuming they all return to what we expect them to do, Panarin 90, 95 points, Zibanejad 70 to 75 points, Trocheck
Get you
60
85.
points. Assuming we get all that, we get a top 5 power play, we get a top 10 penalty kill, we
Miller
get
100 points.
50% puck possession, XG, expected goals share, high danger shot share, 50% across the board. If you get all that, they have a shot.
Right.
But that's a lot that has to go right. And we're expecting a lot of guys on the wrong side of 30 to figure it out after whatever the hell last year was.
Well, I will say this. Mike Sullivan had this inane ability to get a lot out of little in
Yes, he
Pittsburgh.
did. Sully
And
is a giant X factor here. The Rangers have never had a coach like him.
Right, and
ever.
see, you're right, and that's the thing that I think people need to kind of understand. Obviously, we have to see it happen on the ice. I can't say this without having to preface that. But if you can get a fraction of how the team played in 2022, they're in the playoff. And honestly, with outside of Florida, the East is wide open. Honestly,
Hmm.
it really is because if you look at, obviously Columbus will be a little bit better. Boston will be slightly better, than they were last season. Everyone will slightly be better than they were the year before. Obviously, New Jersey's going to be a bit better. The Islanders are going to be a bit better, especially without the shackles of Lou Lamoriello. So obviously everybody's going to be a little bit better, but also the Rangers got a little bit better. The
The
team
Rangers got better on paper just from their roster, let
right,
alone the expectations of most people rebounding after all those distractions from last year are now gone.
exactly, right. So could will they win a Stanley Cup? Probably not. But I think to wash the stench of last season off of our tongues, I think this team it'll surprise us, and I hope that happens. Because there's just again, I this is something that I repeat over and over and over and over again. This team, regardless of whether they're on the certain side of 30 or not, has way too much talent to be that bad. Last season
Yes.
was an anomaly. So if they even perform 45 to 50% similar to what they were in 2022, they will make the playoffs and they will have a shot at the cup for the sole reason that the East is open outside of Florida. They are. Carolina is beatable. Toronto was beatable. Montreal is probably one of the few teams that you would probably have to be, I guess, a bit sort of like on the lookout for. Very good team, very young team, very skilled sort of roster. Not exactly the
And
biggest
Sam
team.
Montembeau is the real deal in net, by the way.
Right. And the last season was his sort of coming out party in terms of emerging as the main guy in Montreal. So I think outside of maybe Florida, Montreal giving you a bit of a hard time, the East is wide open.
And I want to add one thing to the Sully factor. There are, in my opinion, three, maybe four coaches that give you an actual edge on the ice. Mike Sullivan is one of those four coaches. John
Mhm.
Cooper, Jared Bednar, Mike Sullivan, and maybe Ron Francis. I'm giving Ron Francis the benefit of the doubt here because that team gets recycled a lot and they continue to churn out legitimate cup contenders
Do you
that,
mean are you speaking of Carolina or are you speaking of
oh my God,
yeah,
Rod Brindamore, holy crap.
Rod Brind'Amour, yeah. I was
Why
gonna
did I
say
say
Rod
Ron Francis?
because
Rod
he was
Brindamore.
over in Carolina. Yeah, no,
Oh
it's
my
Rod.
God, I need sleep.
It's okay.
Okay, so can I
You
try that again? Can I try that whole? Can we rewind this and try that again? Rod
think
Brindamore is number four, not Ron Francis. Rod Brindamore is number four because that Carolina team just gets turned over, and they still produce top three teams in the East on a regular basis. And
Mhm.
last year, I can honestly say, if it wasn't for whatever that goaltending was in that series against Florida, they had a shot.
Of
They
course.
got horrible goaltending, and that's
Mhm.
team structure. That has nothing to do with the system. So I don't know what Carolina's doing in net. They still believe in this whole, figure it out goaltending thing that doesn't work in
1A,
the
1B
playoffs.
sort of thing, right.
And
Doesn't
that's
really
why you pay Igor Shesterkin.
that's exactly.
You
Again,
pay him for the playoffs.
a fair warning to I mean, we've had this conversation over and over again, but there was that discourse at the beginning of last season where we were trying to figure out exactly why they're paying Igor all that money, and then the Rangers went on that winning streak, and everybody said that's why they did it because the team was not as good as they should have been, and Igor saved their butts. So, anyways,
Remember that start? What was it to the? It was the first Gallant year. What was that? 22, 21, 22.
no, 21-22, yeah.
Was that Gallant or was that Quinn's final? No, that was Gallant.
No, that was Gallant.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
When the Rangers were like a 30% puck possession team and Igor
Mhm.
was stopping like 97% of the shots for 3 months,
Yep. Yep.
like
That's right.
that's what he's capable of. He's capable of carrying you through a 7-10 game. That's half a season slump
Mhm.
when you can't. And this was against playoff teams too. The
Mhm.
Rangers ran away with the division title that year,
Yes, they did. That's right.
and that's why you pay him, because when the team shits the bed, Igor's still there.
Exactly. 100%. All right. This next question comes from Venra, excuse me, Venra6891, and they ask, "Will Quinn be running the defense? This has me worried since he was ruining the Pens defense last year. On the other hand, he did well with their power play. Let me correct you on that, David. I'm almost positive David Quinn didn't run the defense in Pittsburgh.
I'm pretty sure he did not run the defense in Pittsburgh.
David Quinn was only there for the power play. And funny enough, David Quinn actually had a top 10 power play with the Penguins. That was
The
the one
Rangers had a
redeeming.
crappy power play until he came on board.
So he right, and when he was a coach here, the Rangers had probably. I honestly, I will say, outside of some little spurts with Laviolette and Gallant, I think the power play was probably about as good as it ever was with David Quinn. I think that will primarily go to Joe Sacco in terms of running the defense because that's what he was good at when he was with Boston. That's also what he
Yes.
was good at when he was with Colorado. Joe Sacco runs the defense. David Quinn runs the offense, and the other coach who they hired, who for some reason name always escapes me, who came from
Ty
Pittsburgh,
Hennis.
Ty Hennis. I am Ty. If you're ever listening to this podcast, I am so sorry. I
There's
will
no way
remember.
anybody from that team listens to this
I
podcast.
know. Well, I know Larry Brooks listens to this podcast. I think.
I still don't think he listens to the podcast. If he
Well,
does, Larry, shoot me a message on Blue Sky.
hey,
It'd be
Larry.
great to have you on.
No, honestly, yeah. Ty Hennis, if anyone ever tells him that this random dude from New Jersey forgot his name, I'm sorry. I'll remember your name more as the days go on. I am so sorry. But I think Ty Hennis will also, work more with skills and strategy and all that. Also, shout out Dan Muse. He was probably one of the bright spots on this team last season in the coaching side. No offense to Michael Pekka. He did great with the faceoffs, but Dan Muse had that penalty kill humming like a buzzsaw. And that's one of the few things that went well last season. So, no, Quinn won't be running the defense. Uh,
And
and all,
personnel on that Penguins blue line mattered, by the way.
oh
So
yeah,
I just want to. You got 34-year-old Eric Carlson, who actually had a halfway decent season,
he did.
offensively at least. Yeah, 11 goals, 53 points, not bad. Then you had Matt Grzelcyk, I think is how you pronounce
Grizzly,
that, who
Grizzly,
remains
Grizzly.
unsigned. I'm a little surprised about that, but he remains unsigned. You have a 9,000-year-old Christopher Letang. Did I really just call him Christopher?
You did.
All right. You have Marcus Pettersson, who's pretty good. You
Is he
had
still even on Pittsburgh? I don't even think he's there anymore.
he was traded to
To,
Vancouver,
to
or he
Vancouver.
was
That's right.
yeah,
To
he was
Vancouver.
traded
That's
to
right.
Vancouver. This is last year's team. You have Connor Timmins, who arrived from Toronto,
Hmm.
and then you have Ryan Shea, Ryan Graves, who's nowhere near the Ryan Graves that he was in Colorado.
No.
You have Owen Pickering. You have Vlad. Not going to try to pronounce that last name.
Wait, hold on. I have to do this. Hold on. Hang
Kolyachunok. Kolya, Kolyachunok. Kolachunok?
Hold on. I have
Number
to.
23. And then you had P.O. Joseph, who, what is a coach going to do with this blue line? Like, roster construction matters here. The Rangers' blue line today is better than this.
Okay. Before we go on,
You're going to pronounce this name properly.
I'm gonna try to pronounce this. Also, they had Alexander Alexeyev on that team
They
last
did?
season. They
Did I skip
did
him?
they? No, actually, never mind. What? Okay, no, this is the wrong website. ESPN had Sebastian Aho on there. No shot. Um, let's see. Okay, Pittsburgh Penguins, 24-25, Coach Mike Sullivan. Okay, I have to do this because I'm a name pronouncer guy. Oh, Vladislav Kolyachonok.
Oh,
If I
fuck
don't
off.
say that correctly. So the pronunciation is Vladislav Kolia. I got it right. Yeah, it's if you go on Hockey Reference, it gives you the pronunciation. And it's Vladislav Kolyachonok.
Koliachonok.
It's not that hard, David. Anyways, Vladislav Kolyachonok.
I'm gonna reach through the
Um,
screen and strangle you.
oh, you're not the first person that's gonna want to do that. Um, Okay, yeah, no, absolutely. The personnel that that team had, I mean, there's a reason why Sully left. Obviously, Sully wants the new opportunity with New York. He had his time in Pittsburgh. You know, they are not in good times right now in Pittsburgh. But I will say though, I did watch Ryan Shea score 2 goals against the Rangers in a game and was probably about as befuddled as anyone because both of the goals were really weak and they happened right in front of me and the Penguins fans felt it necessary to rub it into my face, even though the game was still going on. Anyways, Rangers won that game 5-3, by the way. After they won that game right after getting the brakes blown off of them in Buffalo, which I was also there for. Anyways, all right. Next question. This comes from Nikki70, and Nikki asks if Panarin's salary needs to be shed to sign either Eichel or McDavid, who becomes their line mates? And it says, seems like Panarin would be ideal, but if we're shedding Panarin's salary, he wouldn't be there. So if they somehow manage to sign McDavid or Eichel, who plays with them, Dave?
So minor quibble on that. They technically don't have to shed the salary. They just won't have to re-sign him. I know, splitting hairs, but they don't have to trade Panarin to sign Eichel or McDavid. But who becomes their line mates? Mika Zibanejad, Will Cooley, Lafreniere. You have a bunch of young wingers, and we've seen both of them are able to carry basically anyone. So you could probably put Edstrom and Rempe there, and they become 30-goal scorers.
Honestly, it might give him more room if you think about it.
That's a good point. So gun to my head, they get McDavid, and Miller stays with the team, and Zibanejad stays with the team. I would say you wind up with Miller, Zibanejad, and Cooley on a line, and then you have
Money.
Laugh, McDavid,
Oh.
and Othman,
Ah. Ah. Oh my goodness, what I would kill for
or
that.
Berard, or Perot.
Oh. Oh my gosh. So you obviously can't see me, but I'm leaning back on the thing that I'm sitting on. I got my arm up, just like looking up at the
Are you
sky.
the Vince McMahon gif right now?
No, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. I know what you're talking about. I'm not. But it's actually very similar to that, but I'm not going as crazy. Uh, I would just kill FBI, not actually kill somebody. I would just kill.
Careful, you're gonna get our show pulled. All right.
I'm not Jimmy Kimmel. Come on. That's a timely joke. I'm sorry.
Wow.
Sorry. That was a very timely, very stupid joke that I made. No, I'm just so like just thinking about that pairing or that line of McDavid, Lafreniere, and insert winger Cooley or Berard in there. Cooley, McDavid, Lafreniere, I think would feed families. I think that's like a perfect playoff line.
Yeah. Wingers aren't the Rangers' problem. It's
No, it's
centers
the
that are the
center. It's
problem.
right.
Rangers have
No,
a solid group of wingers.
no, they really
Unfortunately,
do.
their centers are 900 years old.
It's crazy how that's the one thing that they've managed to avoid, just like romance in my life. Anyways, next question.
Ladies, by the way, if anybody's listening, JL did manage to save my dog from a tree. I didn't know that Rocket could climb trees. He chased a squirrel up there. He couldn't get down. JL drove out from Jersey to Long Island and got my dog out of the tree. Really good
I
dude. Just
did.
give him a chance, girls.
Well, thank you, David. I appreciate that. All right. This next question. See, today's been a very good day. Gosh, now I'm thrown off by that. This next question well, 2 questions come from Captain Jack. Thank you again. Also to everyone that's submitted so far, and thank you, Captain Jack, for your question. The first question is Lafreniere on a line with Othman and Dowling to start camp. You think Sully is sending the message you need to earn it, or seeing if he has the ability to drive play on his own? I wouldn't look too much into that.
No, I
I
wouldn't look
think
into that.
it's a large camp, and I think they just kinda have to sort of spread things out a little bit. Um,
Mhm.
I will say, though, I would assume that at some point, Offman and Lafreniere would end up playing together. I mean, you would hope that the picks who were drafted in back-to-back drafts from each other would end up getting a chance to play with each other, but I'm almost positive going to say that Justin Dowling is not going to be the guy that's gonna be down the middle. Maybe there is a way that Sully is going to tell Lafreniere to earn it, but I think with the messaging of fitness, because that's actually been something also that's really been put out there is Lafreniere's sort of not work ethic, but just sort of his fitness um, and attitude for certain things. Not to say that I'm not chiding the kid, but it's definitely
He
something that
had some growing that had to
he had
happen.
some growing pains, of course. So I think that this is Sully's the perfect guy to do that, but I don't think it's going to be in the form of lines. I think that the days of coaches punishing Lafreniere, putting him on the fourth line, is over. I think he's done more than enough to warrant himself at least playing on the second line. Um, so I don't think that's that. And the
Yeah, I
second
don't think that. I think you go back to the Panarin, Trocheck, Laugh line, and you let them cook
yeah.
in the offensive zone,
Yeah, you have to keep that because they
especially if Zibanejad's gonna be a winger with Miller.
right. I think you keep that. Obviously, Will Cooley would be with Miller and
That's
uh,
gonna be a fun line to watch. Add
that
Cooley to
will be
that
a
line,
fun
that's
line.
gonna be fun.
They did play with each other towards the end of last season, and they did provide some pretty sneaky good moments. I think Cooley and Zibanejad have a sort of very similar dynamic to what Kreider and Zibanejad had. Cooley, I know we talked about this in the summer when there was this sort of concern about what would replicate Chris Kreider's production. And I think Cooley, in many ways than one, will be the guy to do that. Obviously, we stated that before. Obviously, in a different way, too. He's not going to deflect pucks in front of the net every time like Kreider would do. But I think in terms of just kind of being a presence around the net is something that Will Cooley can definitely replicate. And the second part of this question is how many BS shirts do you guys have in order? I will answer for you that right now. Zero. I'm not going to buy one unless it's like something that's really cool. I think that's just for the players only. And then they also ask favorite all-time NYR jerseys.
So, the whole no BS shirt thing, I don't know what Braden Schneider did, but
Gosh, why did I have a feeling you were gonna jump in and say that? I'm like, BS, he's gonna say a player name. Goodness
anyway,
gracious.
all-time favorite Ranger jersey, I think I said that. It was the Cream Winter Classic. I loved that
Oh,
jersey.
those were so good. I would hope that they would you know, I was hoping that they would probably do something with that for the third, but I do like the third jersey. My favorite all-time New York Rangers jersey, this is gonna be kind of a corny answer. Um, Actually, no, I take that back. I initially was going to say Lady Liberty, the original Lady Liberty jersey. That's a classic, but I think now that I think about it, this is kind of a tough one for me, even though this one was a bit of a one-off. Obviously, I have much love for the Heritage jersey. They've had a lot of good moments in those jerseys, but I think my favorite all-time Rangers jersey, outside of obviously the road jersey, because I just love the way those shoulders look on the uniform, is the Winter Classic jersey from 2018. It's a mix of like current times and old school. Obviously, we got the old 1926 script across with the white Rangers on it, which I'd have to remind myself to go pick up my JT Miller jersey from that year. I took my blank and got it customized with JT Miller's number 10 from a few years ago, so I have to go pick that up. Um, but that jersey looks so good on the ice. Uh, and the beanies, the skull caps or the scullies or the toques for that jersey in the Winter Classic is arguably my favorite. I actually have to buy a new one because I wore the crap out of that one. That's my favorite one. I just love the way the whole aesthetic came about. Obviously, it also the game was played at. Haha. I think everybody knows where I'm going with this. That 2018 game was played. Where was the 2018 Winter Classic played, Dave? I want you to answer this because you should already know where I'm getting at. It's actually there today. Where was the 2018 Winter Classic played?
I'm not answering this question. I
Answer it,
refuse.
Dave. You know where it's
I
at.
refuse to
It
answer
was
this
played at
question.
It was played at Citi Field. If you don't know this by now, I am a colossal idiot, aka a Mets fan.
And a Jets fan.
And a Jets fan too, and a Knicks fan. But so I guess that's a part of it too. But I just really like the way the navy blue with the 1926 script, the glove color, the helmet, the way that the pants look, and then also the toque that they wore with it. It's a really good look, and I'm hoping that this new Centennial jersey can continue to deliver. The only difference is that the Centennial jersey doesn't have the shoulder stripes on top of it, which I mean, I get it, but it would be cool to see if they would ever come up with like an old school road jersey. But anyways, all right, so there's that. I'm done yakking about the Mets. Next question. This comes from Light the Lamp, and Light the Lamp asks, "I see this team lacking an identity. I feel playoffs are no guarantee, and we are on the bubble. What do you think we need to make the push to get in?" I mean, we kind of answered that, but
We answered that, but I don't agree with you regarding the identity. I think we've already established what this identity is going to be. They're going to be a fast team, gets in your face, and is tough to play against.
yeah.
Well, remember, fast and playing fast are two completely different things. And
Mm-hmm.
this isn't directed at Light the Lamp. This is a general statement. You can be a slower skater and you don't have to have all these elite fast skaters like Chris Kreider on your team that are straight line fast. You need a team that plays fast. It's a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
You can have me out there with cement in my skates, and I can play fast if I know the system and I know where I'm supposed to be, when I'm supposed to be there, when the puck's getting to me, and what I'm supposed to do with it. You got to drill it and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. Carson Soucy can look fast in this system if it's done right. That was
Mm-hmm.
mean. That was mean. I just compared Carson Soucy to me, and he's a much better skater than me. Like,
Yes.
not even close. He's an NHL player. I'm some guy on a laptop.
Right, yeah. Um, yeah, so I guess what to kind of I guess also add to that is being fat. Well, the Rangers, they were never really a slow team. I think, with Berard's a fast guy. Cooley has some decent wheels. Kreider was a fast player, but they always looked slow. When it playing fast is timing. It's all about timing. It's the same thing in baseball. It's all about timing. Timing, timing, timing. And it's very important in hockey, especially on breakouts. When you could have some of the slowest guys, like you said with Susie, but if your timing is on point, which I don't know why I keep snapping my fingers, it's just kind of emphasizing the point. You don't need barn burners to play fast. They have the speed for it. Lafreniere can definitely book it. You know, but I think it just in terms of the push to get in, you just got to play fast, and they could definitely do it if they can, adapt to the system. Sully, you ever wonder why? Okay, again, just touching back on Sullivan again. You ever wonder why sometimes even though the Rangers would beat up on the Penguins in many cases before, but you ever wonder why certain Penguins teams made the playoffs, especially the team that beat the Rangers for the first couple games in 2022. And it kind of felt like, the Rangers kind of had no hope. Well, it's because that team played fast. Granted, they had Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Christopher Letang. But at the same time, you know, they really took it to the Rangers because they played fast. So I think they have to just stick to that identity, and they're really going for that. So lacking identity, not so much. They're really going for the no BS. I know it's going to become a cliche thing over the next couple of months. The no BS, in your face, trying to get it down and get dirty kind of thing. So that's what they're going for. So that's what I think if they can emphasize that and keep going with that, that's what'll get them into the playoffs. And yes, the playoffs are no guarantee, and yes, they are on the bubble, but anything can happen. All right, so I'm going to say that this is the final question, and this comes from, and I'm going to chuckle saying this username. I'm already laughing seeing it. This comes from Mr. Rat Farts. I love it. I do it. I do. I love it.
I know calling Brad Marchand Mister is giving too much credit here. Like the too much respect to Mr. Brad Marchand there.
Yeah, correct. Did he re-signed with Florida, right? If I'm remembering that correct.
It's like a 30-year deal with a $1 million cap hit.
Goodness gracious. Anyways, I just had to remind myself that. Anyways, all right. So Mr. Rat Farts asks, pronunciation question time. During the Rangers Flyers prospect games, I heard the following, which is correct. So this is for two specific players, Yaroslav Hemlarsh, which, by the way, before I say anything, the Venra6891 in the comments for this kind of specified that it is uh, Hemlarsh, Khemmelmarsh. So it's Kamelarsh. So it's Kamelarsh. Yeah, sure. Um, I
What?
was yeah, it's Chemlarsh. Chemelarsh. See, I'm even having trouble with it. That's one of the names because he's going to be on this team hopefully at some point if he lives up to his thing. So well, I'll start with Dylan Rubrek. It's Ru. So he has it here. Announcer one said Rubrek, and then announcer two has Rubruk. It's Rubrek. So I guess number one, announcer number one is closer to that. So he says, keep in mind they were Flyers announcers. Kind of surprised they didn't start a fight about it. Well, can't really blame them. These are players that they're probably not going to see. For the most part, maybe if they're AHL guys, which I'm assuming they are, they would probably, have a little bit of a better clue for that. But I'm not entirely sure what the AHL media guide does for that. I do know that in the NHL, I don't know if Doc Emmerich still writes it, but Doc Emmerich does the pronunciation guide for the NHL announcers because if there was one thing Doc was good at, it was saying people's names. And then I have to. So for Yaroslav so one announcer said Smellash, and then the second announcer said Hemelash, which I've heard both. But Venra681 says, as a check myself, the best description of Hemlash would be Hemlarsh. Khemlarsh. That's how I'm going to say it. I don't want to tie myself up. Hmelarsh. So, um, I'm going to say whatever Venra said is correct for Yaroslav Khmelarsh. For Rubrek, it's announcer one, Ruberek. And if just as a point of order, Rubrek has two O's, Roobereck, if I'm saying that correctly. Ruberek. Roobereck. I think that's how you spell it. I should look this up for posterity purposes, but yeah, thoughts, Dave.
Duh.
So Dylan Rubrek is Roobroeck. It's definitely not as American as you want it to be. But he is Canadian, so that explains a lot. Yeah, so thank you, Venra6891, for clearing that because I was going to have a bit of a brain fart, like rat fart, uh, for this. It's actually like messed up my brain now. So yeah, I get it. If I'm getting it wrong, please tell me. But I'm going to say what Venera said. It's Chmelarsh. Chmelarsh. You have to Chmelarsh. Chmelarsh. So Yaroslav Chmelarsh.
Okay, I'm like 97% sure that we've gotten it at this point, and people listening are hearing you basically spit into your microphone at this point. And if they haven't fast forwarded yet and they're still with you, kudos to you guys. I want to know if you're still listening to JL pronounce Yaro's name, please let us know.
Yaroslav
We're at the
Chmelarsh.
1 hour, 19-minute mark. If you
Are
listen
we
to
really?
JL,
Oh my
yes,
gosh, I wasn't
we've been
even keeping
recording
track
for a
of the
while.
time.
If you are still listening to JL pronounce this while spitting into his microphone, just let us know
Ay,
in the
ay,
comments
ay.
on YouTube, on the site, wherever. Just let us know because holy shit, dude.
Yaroslav
It's,
Chmelarsh.
it's
That's
now 1 hour and 20 minutes.
Yaroslav Chmelarsh. Okay,
Okay.
we'll leave it at that.
Closing
All right.
statements.
All right. Well, thank you again to everyone who provided us questions. Clearly, as you can tell, this is our favorite part of the podcast. We love uh, answering these and really kind of getting deep on discussing things because we can only talk about things so much at some point. We like to interact with you guys, so thank you very much for that. Thank you for sending stuff on Twitter. Uh, Thank you for sending stuff on Blue Sky and the blog. Also, shout out to Sean Hartnett for tagging us in that post about the jersey. Please feel free to tag us on more stuff to get our thoughts on things. I am definitely a fan of that jersey. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So after this podcast, there will be actual game footage for us to talk about. So this podcast is being recorded on the 18th of September. It'll go live probably about as soon as possible, preferably the 19th. So if you're listening to this, happy September 19th. And the next podcast will be, I guess, touching on some of the stuff that was played. But it's nice to finally talk about some actual hockey stuff and not sound like a complete idiot, which would just be me. So, Dave, final thoughts.
Final thoughts.
Oh, wait. What is it that Jerry Springer would say before he would end his show? What was the name of that segment?
You know what? I can't believe I'm about to say this. I never watched Jerry Springer. I never found it entertaining. And when I was homesick from school, I watched The Price is Right. I played Monopoly with my mom, and then I had Luden's cough drops or whatever, and I'd wind up napping at some point or playing video games while I was homesick. I never really watched Jerry Springer.
Well, when I'd be homesick, it was always Price is Right. And then after Price is Right, it would either be the Jamie Foxx show or Maury, right? And then if you took a nap with Maury, if you weren't already out of bed by then, because this is way past that noon, then Jerry Springer would come on. And I'll say this, it wasn't my choice of show to put on, but if I'm laying in bed and I want to be lazy and I'm not changing the TV, I'd watch a little bit of it. I'm not gonna lie. It's not my favorite, but it was kind of funny. But what he would do is he would end the show with his final thoughts. And your final thought, Dave,
I
on
do like the idea of final thoughts. And because it's just a shit show of a world right now, I'm going to keep it less hockey and more let's recenter ourselves and go out, support your comedians, support free speech, support the ability to criticize those in charge without your life being threatened and without your livelihood being threatened for making a joke about somebody who is in power. That's the whole point of the comedian is to make light of things. And if you're unable to do that, that is true censorship. That is a canary. That is one of the many canaries in the coal mine.
my final thought as a response to that is freedom of speech is not something that just goes one way and is not afforded to the other. If you do not like what the person says, that doesn't mean that you have to vilify them if they aren't hurting you. Comedy is something that we use as a tool to not only cope, but also to speak truth to power, right? And it's not fair if one side can do it, but another side can't. And that's a very down the middle sort of idea because the sentiment goes both ways.
Yep.
If this country is so dead set on freedom of speech and freedom of expression, people should not lose the ability to speak. Granted, sometimes there are things that maybe should not be said. I'm not saying anything specific in particular, but at the end of the day, freedom of expression, freedom of speech is one of the key foundations that we have in this country. And
Mhm.
if there are people who are getting shunned or castrated or being, kicked to the curb because of different thoughts in regards to people in power, then we're not exactly expressing the freedom of speech that everyone so claims this country has. And I will end on that.
Yep.
It's because we're gonna get into a whole different thing, and we're gonna get into Blue Seats Live, the non-hockey edition.
Well, no,
Anyways,
I think this stuff is important. Like
it is
last
important
week, we
because it
went
does.
into other things. It's nice to end on a real world thing. Kind of keep it, keep recentering everybody because a lot of people that listen are not perpetually online, but there's a social media presence,
Of
and
course.
social media isn't real, as we established
No.
last week.
Mhm.
So
And
remember
honestly,
what's
a lot.
important. Remember, try to just take a step back. The 10,000-foot view matters a lot more. Don't miss the forest for the trees.
Right. And just remember, folks, go outside, you know,
What's
talk to
this
people around.
outside you speak of?
Uh, well, you would find out if you wouldn't, stop staying on your computer the whole time, Dave. Go outside, talk to other people, and understand that the world is not always what's being perceived in front of you on the screens.
Exactly.
Anyways, thank you again for taking the time out to listen. Thank you for sending in your questions. Thank you to the Patreon subscribers. And also thank you to, if you're listening to this and you frequent the blog, thank you very much. I want to give a shout out to all of our members on the blog. And next time we'll have more actual hockey to talk about. We're getting there, folks. Football is alive, baseball's winding down, and the ice is being frozen up on the garden. So I'm tired. Good night, everybody. I'll see you guys next week. Let's go, Rangers.